Amy. I thought I'd talk to you about my daughter and reading and why I'm making this channel. Lysi was diagnosed with autism at 4.5. It was a little bit later than my older son, who was diagnosed at 3.5, because Lysi had language. But she spoke in echolalia, and she didn't have any behavior. So she was diagnosed a little bit later, and once we were, in school and learning, it became very evident that reading was very difficult for her. She worked on it at school with me, in therapy, and as soon as you thought she kind of would know a word or would be able to read a word, she would slide backwards. There was no retention. There was no real progress. So she did kindergarten, first grade. Now she's in second grade. She was at a private school, and so what they did, even though she was in second grade, she went back to the first grade classroom for reading and phonics time because she needed that, extra time with learning those things. And she still, really wasn't making any progress. Until she was in third grade, and we did switch schools, and we got a great special education teacher who worked with me. We became actually good friends, and we did a lot of brainstorming together. And one of the things that she suggested was the way that they normally do in schools, even starting at the kindergarten level, is they'll take a book and they'll say, okay, this is the book you're reading today. And then the next day, they may review that. The teacher may review that book with them, but then they'll give them a new book. So quite often, children who are learning to read will be introduced to a new book each day. It's probably not this long, but it's a new story or new characters, and maybe even new phonics sounds. So we realized that was too quick for Lysi to adapt to. She needed a full week. So if we're going to give her a book on Monday, she's going to read the same book all week long, every day, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. She's going to send that book home with me. I'm going to read it to her, with her on Saturday and Sunday. She's going to practice. And then on Monday, there's a review and maybe a new introduction. So if your child is having difficulty retaining what they're learning and reading, having difficulty making progress, that's a really good idea. Give them more time to process that information. They might need more exposure. They just might need more time. And oftentimes in the school system, it's like, move them along. Next book, next, math concept, move it along. It's okay. We can slow it down. It's more important that they learn and that they enjoy reading. I cannot say that enough. That is my whole philosophy. Really, when you bring it down to the foundation of it, I want my children to enjoy reading. They're all adults now, and we all read for enjoyment. They all love to read. But when they were younger, that's really my goal, was to make reading fun. And when a child is what I affectionately called Lysi, a reluctant learner, she really wasn't interested in learning. She didn't have that motivation or that desire that some children, really feel that I want to learn to read. So it was difficult for her. Another challenge that we faced was that Lysi, because of her autism, had a harder time communicating. And how do we know if a child can read? They have to read out loud. So when Lysi would read out loud and wasn't really able to, or was, not saying the right words, it was just determined she's not able to read. And it was around that second, third grade level that I remember laying in bed one night. And I did, as an autism mom, I can't tell you how many hundreds and hundreds of nights I laid in bed with my eyes open in the dark and just thinking, analyzing, when she did this, what would that mean? Or what can I do to help them, make progress with this? And I remember that night so clearly because I was just racking my brain, analyzing everything I could about Lysi and her reading, and I was desperate to get her to read, to like reading and to enjoy it and to make some progress, because I knew that being able to read would give her independence as an adult, at least the hope of independence, having that autonomy, and independence to be able to read the directions on a package, how to, what bus stop to get on, or, we take for granted how much reading there is in daily life. And so I wanted my children, and especially even Lysi, to really have that autonomy. And I knew that reading was the key to that. So I was just racking my brain at night thinking, what can I do? And that's when it clicked. I remember imagining Lysi's brain as like a country road, okay? And maybe all of us neurotypicals is on a freeway, information point A to B, just like that. But maybe, Lysi's brain takes a scenic route and she could still get to the same destination, but that, maybe takes a little bit longer. And that along that way, the words for her has to be processed by her eyes, go into her brain, be transferred into speech, and then come out of her mouth. And I thought, geez, that's a lot of steps. Maybe when it goes in her brain, she sees the word and her brain can process it. Maybe that's not the issue, but she can't maybe speak it, read out loud. And that's the only way we, her teachers and parents, therapists, can know if she's able to read. Can she tell me what she's reading? Then I'll know that she can read. So I thought, okay, that could be the problem. Maybe we can, start there. Maybe she can read. She's not able to read out loud. So the next day, her senior therapist was over, and another therapist, and I said, hey, let's try this. Like I had this idea. Let's write down a couple things that are directions, and just say, Lysi, read this and go do it. Just, what does it say? Go do it, instead of reading it out loud. And on the paper it said, I wrote, go brush your teeth, or go get your toothbrush. Go get your toothbrush. And so we put the piece of paper on the table and we just waited. The three of us adults in the room. And then she got up and we're like, okay. She didn't say anything. She just got up. She was leaving the room, and we were in her bedroom, therapy room at the time. So she left the room. We're like, could she be going to the bath? Sure enough, she comes back with a toothbrush. I was just like, so we had this little breakthrough, and I'm sorry, but it's, those milestones are just the best. And like I said, it was just one of those moments in my life where I was just like, just so happy. And then, we did another piece of paper, and I think it was pick a book off the shelf. I think it was like, go get a book. And she did. And so we knew, like, she can read. That's not the problem. All these years, I mean, like, we're talking like kindergarten, first grade, second grade, like 3-4 years of just banging our heads against the walls trying to figure out how to promote literacy, how to teach her phonics, how to sight words, how we, how to do this. And believe me, we tried. So that's a couple things to keep in mind. If you're struggling, and I mean for any child that is having some difficulty reading, I'm not necessarily saying that this is only pertaining to children with autism. I just mean any child that may be struggling with reading, make sure that you're giving them that extra time, and don't just base their ability to read on reading out loud. Give them a little bit more credit. Give them extra time with that book, so that they can really get used to it. And part of that is knowing what to expect. Lysi has anxiety. So not knowing how the story ends or what's going to happen in this story, having some anxiety about that the first time she may read a book, may be harder for her to read a book. That's why I'm saying give her another few days with that same story. She knows what the outcome's going to be. She knows how the story ends. So now she's more comfortable. She doesn't have anxiety while reading it. So these are just like our experiences with reading. And now Lysi is 18 and she can read in a 5th grade level. So she's reading chapter books. So she just read like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory this last year and Fantastic Mr. Fox. So when you see her reading books, maybe on this channel that are for younger kids like this, it has a little bit of text and it has, like flaps. This is what I'm letting her read for independent time by herself, because it engages her sensory needs with the flaps and the holes and the peek throughs or the buttons and the music. And the text is simple enough for her to read and she enjoys it. That's what we want. We want her to enjoy reading a book. When we have to read a chapter book, that's a little bit more work. Yeah, she can read at a 5th grade level, but there's a lot more comprehension. There's a lot more inferences and definitions. It's harder for her. So when you're, offer your children, don't be stuck in this. This is their level and they can only read at this level, or books from this lexile. Yes, for schoolwork or learning at school, we want to help them at that level and to continue to make progress. But for independent reading time, for fun and enjoyment, offer books that are all different levels. Picture books are fine. Story books are fine. Lysi really enjoys flaps. It's just another great way to engage sensory needs of special needs kids that need something to do. So don't just get stuck on, they're 5th grade. They need all chapter books. Try different levels. Offer them a whole variety and make sure your kids have the support and the resources to expand their love of lifelong reading.